From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your Evening Update.
American Door Company has been family-owned and operated for over 29 years, supplying Northern California with quality garage doors, garage door openers, and installed with the best service you'd expect from a locally owned company. We serve all of Northern California from Willows all the way up to the Oregon state line. Give us a call today.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Meteorologist Mike Krueger, and the warming trend has started. It's going to be even warmer here as we go into tomorrow and for the rest of the weekend. We've got that mini heat wave, if you will, peaking sometime toward the end of this week and even into the weekend before temperatures do start to drop. We've got a cooling trend going through next week, but it's going to take a while before it actually gets here. A bit of a prolonged heat wave, if you will. Also, tracking that monsoon moisture that could be working its way up from the desert southwest into Northern California. Higher humidity levels and more moisture to work with, meaning the chance for some mountain thunderstorms. We'll get into all of that in their deeper dive forecast in just a bit, but let's take a look at your Krueger's Quickcast for your Wednesday, August 20th. All right, let's start off with your temperatures for tonight. You'll notice, not as cool as it has been. We've been dropping down the upper 50s, low 60s in the valley overnight. Now we're in the mid to upper 60s. So those overnight lows are starting to increase as well. And that's one of the reasons why we do start seeing those heat advisories, because the recovery overnight isn't quite as good as we've seen. All right, so we take a look at out the door tomorrow morning. And yeah, I mean, we've been looking at temperatures even the mid to upper 60s by 8 o'clock in the morning for the valley. Now it's already up to 76 degrees by 8 a.m. For the mountains, we've got 50s and 60s and some 50s out along the coast and even some clearing. So we got a ridge of high pressure that is building over Northern California, and that is what's going to really be the source for that heat over the next several days. As far as futurecast is concerned, no rain, no showers, no thunderstorms at this point, at least for the next couple of days, but you can see some fog to start off the morning, especially around Eureka. That should clear out, and I do expect to see some sunshine for a good part of the North Coast throughout the day on Thursday. And by Thursday night, Friday morning, we do start to see that fog begin to return, otherwise clear skies for the rest of us. So for tomorrow, it's getting even hotter. You're talking 103 to 106 on average for most of us in the valley. 90s, even some triple digits for some of the higher elevations, and mid to upper 60s for the coast. Plenty of sunshine across the board. We take a look at your 7-day outlook for the valley and see this prolonged heat wave I was talking about. 105 to 106 for Redding, at least for 4 days. Still very hot on Monday. That's the 5th day. And then temperatures should start to drop after that. And you can see that prolonged heat wave continues for pretty much everyone in the valley. And even the higher elevations in the coast, you're going to be looking at temperatures mid-60s there. Now, inland, you're going to be over 100 degrees through Monday, dropping back down to the 90s by Tuesday, Wednesday. And for Trinity County, I'm expecting maybe a chance for some thunderstorms here by next Tuesday and Wednesday. For Siskiyou, Modoc County, the Eastern Mountains, yeah, I mean, once that monsoonal moisture moves in, we've got that chance for thunderstorms at least through the middle of next week, and those chances may start to diminish after that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the free Weather NorCal app that you have access to 24/7. Just go to your app store, search for Weather NorCal, download the app for free, and get all of the information, all of the local information that you need. Again, search for Weather NorCal, space between Weather NorCal. Look for that app icon, and you'll be good to go. All right, let's take a look at our fire weather forecast, sponsored by Garmin's Tractor Service. As you can see here, we do have those winds a little breezy tomorrow morning. I'm a little concerned about that. That's going to elevate that fire weather risk early in the day, but the good news is the winds should subside as we go into Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, winds not very strong. They may pick up a little bit in the afternoon, a little breezy, 10 to 15, maybe close to 20 miles per hour. But with the added heat, unfortunately, that's going to really elevate that fire weather risk. Let's talk about that. So as you can see, already by Thursday noon, we're looking at moderate to even high by midday. And again, that's because we have those gusty winds to start off the day. And then the afternoon, we've got the high fire danger here for the valley. Look at the humidity levels. They're down into the single digits. Then we go into your Friday, pretty much the same story. I do expect there to be more widespread high fire danger. Once again, with those breezy south winds, humidity levels very low, even out towards central Siskiyou County and parts of the eastern mountains. We've got to be extra careful over the next few days. Let's talk about that heat here. We now have an extreme heat warning for Siskiyou County, and we have the heat advisory elsewhere. It does not include places like Bernie, Chester, or Quincy, but bottom line, doesn't matter what this is all saying here, it's going to be hot any way you look at it. So let's take a look at that heat wave in progression here as we go through the next few days. As we go into your Thursday, you've got a lot of orange on the map. What does that mean? It means, based on the National Weather Service heat risk, that it's a moderate heat risk, meaning it affects most people, not everyone, but it affects most people sensitive to heat without proper cooling or hydration. Now we go into Friday, we're not only seeing a lot more orange on the map, but now some red, putting us in that major category in some spots. That affects anyone. It doesn't matter how healthy you think you are. It'll affect anyone if you don't have proper hydration or cooling. So if you work outdoors, make sure you've got plenty of water. Looks like conditions will be the same for your Saturday and probably even into Sunday before we start seeing less and less reds and eventually less and less oranges going into next week. So we're going to be looking at this prolonged heat wave of at least 4 to 5 days before temperatures do start to drop after that. So again, the reason why we've seen the cooler temperatures earlier this week is this area of low pressure here. It's now moved on out. It's making way for high pressure and the heat associated with it from moving on in. Meanwhile, this right here is going to stay put. We'll see some energy kind of move up and over the ridge, but for the most part, we're going to see this kind of stay put at least through the weekend before it eventually has an impact on us later next week. So once again, we can see this heat is expanding westward into Northern California. That gives us much hotter temperatures as we're expecting to see starting tomorrow, lasting through the weekend. This, as I mentioned, stays put through the weekend. There's through Sunday. Heat still in place over the weekend. Now, starting next week, that heat will start to migrate back down to the south and east. Why is that? Well, look at this over here. This area of low pressure is diving to the south and pushing a little bit to the east, and that's helping to kind of break down that ridge of high pressure, and as a result, we start to see our temperatures begin to drop. So again, you can see that prolonged heat wave. 1, 2, 3, 4 days, at least 4 days of 105 to 106 for Redding. Temperatures start to drop, but then that 5th and 6th day, we're still over 100 degrees before we finally drop back down below normal by the middle and latter part of next week and even into that next weekend. Certainly a welcome sight there. All right, so we talked about the heat, what we expect with that. Now let's talk about the chance for mountain thunderstorms. Now, right now, and the way it's been this week, we've got dry air in place. That's the brown, that's the blue. You see that? That's the drier air that's in place. This all here is monsoonal moisture that we're seeing, and this is typical. This is seasonal for the desert Southwest, and you typically have what's known as a four corners high. Now, depending on the positioning of this high pressure and the flow itself, we can get that flow to transport that monsoon moisture into Northern California, and that's exactly what's going to happen. You see all these greens and yellows kind of coming into the picture here. It's working its way northward. Now, it's going to do a couple of things. That by the time we get into the weekend, more humidity, so higher humidity most likely for the valley, that should lower our fire weather risk a little bit, but it will still be very hot, as you know, through the weekend. But that may also be enough moisture for the mountains to squeeze out some thunderstorms here come Saturday. And I say mountains, mainly Modoc, Lassen, and Plumas counties. Then as we go into Sunday, Monday, Siskiyou County getting in on that as well. And eventually by Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, we start to see Trinity County seeing those thunderstorms. And at this point, I don't think the valley will see any of that activity, just the slightly higher humidity levels. So for your Thursday morning, there is some of that fog around Humboldt Bay that should dissipate. I'm expecting a lot of sunshine, a beautiful day along the coast here, but not so beautiful elsewhere as it will be very hot, as we were just talking about. Then we go into your Friday morning, 6 a.m., there's that fog returning. Friday afternoon, it's having a harder time burning off, but you can see along the immediate coast here, there are some breaks in there. So we'll call it partly to mostly cloudy skies along the coast for Friday. Still plenty of sunshine, but take note, we're beginning to see signs of that monsoonal moisture working in. There's some convective activity right here. Those are some afternoon cumulus clouds at this point. Futurecast still keeping it dry, but by Saturday, we may be talking about some of those showers and thunderstorms entering the picture. And let's show you that. So you can see the area of high pressure, see that moisture working its way northward. So you see what's happening? The Sierra, and it does look like we could see Modoc, Lassen, and Plumas counties all seeing that potential for an afternoon thunderstorm on Saturday. That's when it all starts. Then on Sunday, more moisture continuing to work in, same spots, but I do think now Siskiyou County could get in on some of those thunderstorms by Sunday, but still dry elsewhere, right? For Trinity County and, of course, the inland areas. Then we go into your Monday, you see that? Now it's creeping a little bit more to the west, so I think Trinity County could get in on it. I don't think the inland areas of the North Coast, though, will get caught up in this thunderstorm activity, but elsewhere in the mountains, you've got a chance for thunderstorms. You can see the valley is still remaining dry. We could continue to see this trend at least through around the middle of next week. All right, taking a look at your wave heights, they are starting to increase a little bit here for your Thursday. Friday, they start to back off a little bit here. So just that one little brief period where those wave heights do get a little bit higher. All right, before we get to our full forecast here, I want to talk about something. Let's talk La Nina. All right, so some of you may have been seeing on social media the talk and even headlines from reputable media companies saying La Nina forecast for this winter, meaning wetter than normal conditions for the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. So here are some of the questions I've been getting. Here's kind of the basic phrase I've been getting. I heard La Nina returns this winter. Does that mean it's going to be a wet winter? Well, let's try to answer that for you. Let's take a look at this graph. This is coming in from the Climate Prediction Center. All right, so there's a lot going on here, but it's pretty simple, pretty basic. Blue means La Nina, at least the chances, right? So the percentages from 0 to 100% chance of seeing a La Nina. This month, we have been in what's known as ENSO. And what that means is no warming, El Nino, no cooling, La Nina. So none of that so far of the equatorial Pacific, right? That's what we look at. More of that ENSO. All right, so there you can see neutral. Neutral ENSO is what we're looking at here. We go into August, September, October. We're still in the neutral, right? So no warming, no cooling, but you see what's happening? La Nina is creeping upward. Then eventually by September, October, November, within that time frame, we could go into a possible La Nina. There's a 50% chance, over 50% chance we could go into La Nina. Then by October, November, December, we've got close to a 60% chance of La Nina. Then it starts to wane again. And by the time we get into December, January, February, now we're kind of equal with La Nina and neutral. And then January, February, March, we're going more into neutral. All right? So you can see it kind of peaks a little bit and then it drops. So number one, this is not expected at this point to be a strong La Nina. Number two, it's not going to be here for very long. So the headlines that say La Nina this winter, wetter than normal conditions. No, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case. So let's talk about that. Why are the headlines saying that? When we hear the word La Nina, when we hear the phrase, it's a La Nina winter, here's what people think. And here's what their research shows them. Typically in a La Nina winter, we see wetter than normal conditions in Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. Not to mention off to the Northeast as well. Okay, that's typical. That's if you have a strong enough La Nina pattern. Temperature-wise, doesn't really impact us, maybe a little bit cooler than normal, but that's it. Not a big deal when we're talking temperatures. Now, when we're ENSO, when we're neutral, okay, doesn't really matter. We're not seeing anything warmer, cooler, wetter, or drier. It's just pretty typical status quo for us. No big deal there. So, to answer the question, is it going to be wetter this winter? Some people believe it is because we're going to do a little bit of a La Nina. But here's the thing, there's not enough data just yet for us to really conclusively say, yes, it's going to be wetter than normal. We're leaning toward that solution because we do have the signs of La Nina. And as we get more data coming in, the second week of September, when we get a new set of data coming in from the Climate Prediction Center, we might start getting a better idea. We'll, of course, keep you updated on that. So as of right now, Not all hope is lost for a wetter than normal winter, but it's not guaranteed at this point. We certainly can't guarantee that, but at least there is some hope for that. All right, let's get you to your forecast here, your neighborhood forecast, sponsored in part by Dignity Health. Here you go. We've got those temperatures. They're warming up. 102 for Weaverville, 102 out in Trinity Center. There's that chance for thunderstorms for Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's take you down to the North Coast neighborhood forecast, sponsored by Dignity Health. Mid-60s on average here for the next 7 days. I don't expect any rainfall here or for the inland areas, but it will be hot. 103 for Friday inland, and then temperatures eventually below 100 degrees by next Tuesday and Wednesday. Your Dignity Health Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast, mainly in the 90s tomorrow. Some of the warmer spots like Happy Camp at 102. I've included your chance for thunderstorms starting Sunday, could go into the middle of next week. For Modoc County this weekend, thunderstorms are in the forecast that could continue off and on through next Wednesday. That's also the case for the eastern mountains, with highs on Thursday well into the 90s for many spots, 95 in Paradise, 93 degrees in Shingletown, and 97 degrees in Susanville. Let's take a look at your Dignity Health Valley neighborhood forecast. Temperatures over 100 degrees. Yeah, no big surprises there. 103 for Redding, 102 out of Norville, 101 for Gridley. And this heat wave sticks through Sunday, and then they start to drop as we go into early next week. Here's your 7-day forecast for Chico. 102 to 103 through Saturday, 101 Sunday, 100 Monday, back down to the mid-90s by Tuesday and Wednesday. Look at the overnight lows, low 70s. That's getting pretty warm, folks. We'll take a look at the North Coast neighborhood forecast, the Valley neighborhood forecast to the north, also sponsored by Dignity Health. Look at that. I mean, we're talking 106 for the city of Shasta Lake, Redding, Bella Vista, Anderson, 104. You get the idea, right? We're getting hot again. Is this excessive? Not necessarily. I mean, when we start getting that 110, which we, by the way, many of us have yet to hit 110 degrees this year. We may get through the summer without seeing that. We'll see. But that's what it looks like for now. Taking a look at your 7-day forecast for Redding, that heat wave continues well through the weekend, really. And then temperatures start to drop by early next week, eventually back down to the mid-90s by next Wednesday. That's your evening update. I'll be back again tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and live on Coffee with Krueger at 6:30. Have yourselves a great night.